The Florida Podcast Network, the voice of Florida.
From Mallory Square in Key West to the Governor's Mansion in Tallahassee and all points beyond, you're listening to the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com, your source for all things related to the craft beer community in the Sunshine State. And now your host, Dave Butler.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Florida Beer Podcast, powered by FloridaBeerBlog.com. This is Dave, your host and author, and we are heading to Plant City today, which, for as long as I remember, I always thought was named after plants because they grow plants there, especially strawberries, because it is the home of the Florida Strawberry Festival. But no, that is not the plant that it's named after. It's actually named after Henry Plant, one of two Henrys, the other being Henry Flagler, of course, that helped build modern day Florida. And that's important because in Plant City is the home of Keel Farms. Now, this is first and foremost a farm growing a variety of crops, most notably blueberries. They also have a winery, a brewery, a cidery, and an absolutely fantastic spot to enjoy all of those and food and so much more. And we sat down with Clay Keel, who is currently in control of the organization after purchasing it from his father, who founded it many, many years ago, to talk about a lot of those things, but really to talk about the wines, because Florida's wine industry is really starting to take off. People are understanding that wine isn't necessarily what you get from California or Oregon or Washington. You can make a great tasting wine in a lot of different areas. And while Florida isn't necessarily known as a wine region, especially with our tropical wines, it's starting to get there. Plus, there's a lot of other factors at play when it comes to that people may not necessarily know about. So let's sit down with Clay Keel, Keel Farms, Keel Agrarian Ales and Ciders. We got a lot to chat about in a short amount of time, so enjoy. Feels like Keel Farms, the story of Keel Farms, is in large part a window into and a story of Plant City as a whole.
Yeah.
And since Tampa tends to get all the glory and St. Pete grabs whatever's left over, can you give us a good rundown of, what is Plant City? What makes it special? Why did we pass a school called Strawberry on the way here?
Yeah, good question. So the origin of Plant City is actually the railroads. We were the crossroad of the east, west, and north, south, still are. Railroads still have a train going through there every 30 minutes in downtown Plant City, which is pretty neat. But later it became the strawberry capital of the world. So of the world. Yeah, the winter strawberry capital.
Winter.
Of the world. Yeah.
I knew that there were a lot of strawberries here. In fact, this is the home of the Florida Strawberry Festival, right?
It is. Yeah. Huge festival, bigger than the state fair. They get 1 million people in 8 days. It's crazy. So the two things, most people think about strawberries, which unfortunately is dwindling. The strawberry business, it's still out here, but it's dwindling given the value of land, right? But the Strawberry Festival is the other thing that Plant City is known for.
Honestly, I didn't even think about the strawberries for some weird reason, because the story of Keel Farms starts with blueberries, if I'm correct.
Yeah, so also a great region for blueberries, and University of Florida hybridized the blueberry in the early 90s and made it able to grow it here in Florida. We were one of the first ones to do it, and at that point, and even still, the weather and the climate and the terrain is great for blueberries. So we still have about 12 acres of blueberries going out there.
So this is still a farm. This is a real working, let's grow it and pick it, produce it, and kind of, do you actually sell the blueberries wholesale, or what does that business look like?
No, we don't. No, blueberries are only almost exclusively from our property are U-picked by customers. We do blueberry U-pick during our blueberry festival in April. We do sometimes use them for the wine, but generally we make so much of the wine. We have contracts with other Florida farmers in the area to get their fruit, and then we freeze it, and then we use it throughout the year to make the wine.
How difficult is it? We'll get to the wine in a second, but the U-pick is always interesting because obviously if you have your employees picking the fruit, they know how to pick it correctly. The land is sort of kept well, shall we say?
Yeah.
Is it difficult to train customers that come in how to do this the right way so that way you can have it for the next season and the season after that and so on?
Yeah, the blueberries are pretty easy. That's the good thing. They're tough fruit. They can sit on the bush for a while, a few days, and wait for a customer to come pick them. And then you can't really hurt the plant. You might get one stepped on or maybe, but generally speaking, they flower and they fruit in one season. So worst case scenario, the customer might pick a berry too early. But that, we sort of build that into the business plan.
And where exactly is the farmland? Is it close to us, or is it still a distance away that you have to go to?
No, yeah. So if you come to our tasting room where we're sitting, you go out the back door, it's 100 yards, and you'll reach our animals. We have goats and chickens. And then a little further, we got flowers and strawberries, depending on the season. You go a little further, you're in the blueberries. So the blueberry plants are 200 yards from the tasting room.
Okay, so you said the blueberries, it's more April. What about the flowers and the strawberries? When are the best times to come and pick those?
Yeah, so generally strawberries are ready on our farm around January 1st. Then about 2 months, so we can pick those until it gets kind of warm and humid. Then the blueberries are ready in April 1st to the end of April generally. Then we go right into the flowers, and we'll have flowers in late May, June, July. Then we kind of take a break and do it all again. We do sort of like a fall harvest celebration in the fall. So that's when we'll have the small little corn maze, and we sell pumpkins. You can grow pumpkins in Florida, but the problem is you can't grow them till December. So the timing is off.
That makes sense. Yeah. That's exactly the time that you need the farm for everything.
And we've even thought
else.
about creating a second Halloween somehow, like in April or May, where we can sell pumpkins. Yeah. Perfect.
That makes sense.
Let's come up with that.
So hey, that sounds just right to me. And I was going to say, you had actually mentioned corn. This is a good corn region, correct? Because I remember we're not too far from Zellwood, which is the other big agricultural festival every year. I remember going to the Zellwood Sweet Corn Festival. Yeah. Have you ever thought of corn on the property or getting additional land for that?
No, sweet corn, you could grow it here, but again, scale. If you wanted to do it at a level where you can make money, we're not big enough for that land-wise. We actually do a corn sorghum hybrid, which is kind of neat. Sorghum is actually a really, really cool plant, and you can make beer with it, which is neat. Not going to taste quite as good as barley, but you can do it, and it's gluten-free.
I was going to say I know a lot of gluten-free beers that are straight gluten-free use sorghum as their malt. Interesting.
But yeah, the plant is really neat because it's very easy to grow. It actually puts nitrogen in the soil. As opposed to most plants, which is great. It's good for the soil. So it's a good crop rotation crop, actually.
Do you get a lot of visitors that are coming to the area that don't realize exactly how strong the agricultural history of this particular area of Florida is?
Yeah, sometimes. We definitely tell that story. And that's one of our kind of the origin story for us, and part of our mission is community, telling the story and keeping agriculture going with agritourism. I'm super passionate about that. And what's great is both the culture, the society, and our politicians both agree with me that that's important, and the future of agriculture is somewhat reliant on agritourism.
And I guess agritourism, going to places, visiting these places specifically, do you think that Florida does enough to really support and get the word out about agriculture in the state? Obviously, the people that are down the road, they spend millions of dollars doing their thing. But does the state see a lot of the potential that agritourism has to bring people into the state, or people like us that just want to go visit what we have?
Oh, yeah. No, they do. They definitely do. The Fresh from Florida program through the Department of Agriculture is great. They do a nice job. We get a marketing grant every year. Florida farm wineries do to help market what we do. But Fresh from Florida obviously does lots of commodities, and they do a great job. And they've had a ton of success, obviously, with strawberries and citrus and other stuff. So they do a really nice job.
And with Fresh from Florida, I know there's a certain percentage of the end product that has to be sourced from within the state. What is that percentage?
Yeah, are you referring to the
like for example, the wines? We're looking at a bunch of wines right here. They have. I think I can see the Fresh from Florida label on them. Does that mean that they have to be 100% produced in the state of Florida, or can, for example, if you have a special, fruit that comes from Georgia or Washington State or China or Denmark or something, what percentage can come in but still be considered Fresh from Florida?
Good question. And I'm certainly not an expert. And an interesting story that we went through last year, we had to take the Fresh from Florida off of our labels. The federal government made us do that because they said it was a certificate of origin. Because I'll give you an example, meaning that everything in the bottle you have to prove that it comes from Florida. So if we use, like in wine, we use a coloring. So, this tiny amount of coloring is manufactured from grapes, and those grapes are from out west. So if you can't prove the whole product it's very difficult to prove that certificate of origin in our business. It's a long story, but they made us take it off. So I went back and forth with the with the state, and it's hard to go back and forth with the federal government because they usually don't respond very quickly. I even had our congresswoman helping me out, and we just weren't able to get there. Hopefully we will get there. The state wants me to put Fresh from Florida on the bottle.
I would assume we're not going to get political here because I don't want to, but I would assume that the federal government would want that label on as much as possible to just prove and to show, hey, look at all the great things that each of our states are doing. I'm surprised that they even jumped in.
I think I will say that it is important to defend the origin, the certificate of origin, and label truth, right? So, I appreciate that. I could see both sides of the argument. You don't want somebody saying it's a Sonoma wine that you make in New Jersey with Sonoma grapes, right?
That makes sense.
Right. So I think that they're sensitive to that, and we'll get through it. But to answer your question, so the Florida program is the Florida Farm Winery program. So to be a part of that program, you have to grow your the products that you're making your wine with on site. You have to have, I believe it's 5 acres. I might have that wrong. Of fruit. We have the 12 acres of blueberries, but then we have another 6 acres of muscadine grapes. As far as the percentages and how much is a percentage and that sort of thing that you're making, from your products here in the state, I think that's a little bit more loose.
Awesome. So we've talked about the fact that you have wines. Let's talk about how you got into wines, because it was your father that started the farms. You said, back in
I'd say I'm third generation because it was my father, but it was my grandparents funding it, Oh, no,
that makes a lot of this, a story that I have heard. Yeah, exactly. A story I have heard quite a bit.
I think the third generation is always the one that ruins it. I think that's...
I don't know. I mean, sure doesn't look ruined to me. Let's put it that way. But so we've got a blueberry farm. We've got muscadine grapes. First of all, why was the decision made to jump into a very different and, from a legal standpoint, significantly more difficult to deal with product like wines?
Amen to that. Can you imagine, get in the DeLorean and go back to 2003 and go, we're going to make wine out of blueberries and sell it, before barefoot got real popular. And so you can kind of put yourself in that situation, and what my father did back then was pretty amazing. So he was packing blueberries, right? And for his farm and other farms at the time, we had like 50 acres of blueberries. So there was a lot of blueberries. Every day you end up with a barrel or 2 barrels of fruit that just isn't pretty enough for Publix. They won't sell something with a scar on it, or a bird can damage it. The berry can repair, but now it's got a brown spot, and nobody wants to buy that. So he started making, he said, hey, I got all this extra berry at the end of the day. Started making wine in his kitchen just for fun. And he's like, yeah, this is pretty good, right? So then built the winery from there, just made a little bit more, made a little bit more, made a little bit more, opened a tasting room and a mobile home kind of on the other side of the property, and built this place in 2008. Had a good relationship with Publix and just kept going.
I was going to say, Publix, obviously, I remember for as long as I can remember, I'm amazed that it's only as far back as 2003. Because for as long as I can remember, these products were on the shelves at Publix. Seeing as this is wine, what was it like communicating with Plant City to tell them, like, hey, I know we're making fruit. We're going to make wine out of that fruit. What was it? What was that whole process communicating with them and getting them on board like back then?
Yeah.
And obviously, what is the relationship like these days?
Good question. Yeah. So we're unincorporated here. So it was the county.
Okay.
We have to go through the county as far as, we have a plan development to do what we do. Yeah.
And this is Hillsborough or?
Hillsborough County.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Now we are mailing address Plant City, but we're not in the city limits, which has its pluses and minuses. I like Plant City. It'd be really nice, actually, to have the sewer and the water service. Everybody thinks they want to be on well and septic until you try to start a big winery. And yeah, so answer your question, going way back then, Plant City is very conservative, and even more so was then. So yeah, we're going to start a big alcohol manufacturing place on the outskirts of town. It raised some eyebrows. But no, time has gone on. I think we built a lot of trust with the city, and they love us.
And I would say, I hate to say this because this is primarily a beer podcast. The social norms when you think of beer and when you think of wine is very different. And wine seems to be a much more elevated experience. I wonder if that had anything to do to sort of massage the local concerns.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it was, winery is going to bring culture. It's a little bit higher, and we still maintain that. Like, we close early. We don't have the issues that you might see at bars with over drinking and fights, and this is not that place. No. So even though it is very, very family friendly and casual, and please come here in sandals and ask us to put ice in the sangria, like, I'm not going to be offended, but it still tends to be a little bit of a more refined experience. Super casual, super fun, super laid back, but we're not a dive by any means.
Do you get a lot of people that hear the word wine and they assume Sonoma? And then come in, they get the bunch of fruit wines and they sort of turn their nose up. This is not real wine because this is not what I am used to.
That is a great question. I really like that question. It used to be 5 or 10% of people. Now it might be 1 or 2%.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So 20 years ago, it was 5 or 10. Now it's 1 or 2. Even people that come over in Range Rovers from South Tampa, they generally don't stick their nose up. Now we do sell traditional grape wines. We can buy them in bulk out of the West Coast. Some amazing wines out of Washington and Oregon that don't have the provenance of Sonoma and Napa, right? Yeah. And we are able sometimes to get those in bulk, tweak them a little bit, and then bottle them, and then we have something here to sell to those folks.
Yeah, I've always liked those. Yeah. Kind of the sweet white, very on par with German.
We had a Sauv Blanc out of there that was just great.
Nice.
It's just always good.
But let's talk about the stuff that you make here, because obviously I would assume that because you had so many blueberry fields, you started with a blueberry wine.
Yep.
Is that sort of the OG, the original? This is where you start the Keel story. Yeah,
I started with 3 blueberry wines. We still make those, a sweet, semi-dry, and a dry. We call the semi-dry something different now, but we still make those. We make a total of probably 5 or 7 different blueberry wines all year long.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. And then what other, because we're taking a look, we got plenty of those. You had mentioned sangria.
Yep.
Obviously, what other kinds of wines do you make from the fruit that you grow here?
So basically just the blueberry is all that we make here, and it's all that we make from raw fruit. So we literally start with the blueberry, ferment it on the skins, just like they would make a high-end red wine anywhere in the world. Same process. So the rest of our wines are fruit mix, fruit fusion, we call it. So it's a base of a wine. Like our Wild Berry Pinot Noir is one of our best sellers. That's a Pinot Noir base. You obviously can't grow Pinot Noir in Florida. So we source that Pinot Noir juice, ferment it out, and then we have our mix of different berries that we infuse it with.
That's awesome. With the blueberry, with the dry, would you compare it to something like a Pinot Noir or maybe even a Cab, or is it really its own separate entity and to go in sort of tabula rasa blank slate?
Yeah, great question. I think maybe you can compare it on like sweetness and body maybe. And so if you did the blueberry dry, it's close to a Pinot as far as feel, but you still get like when you taste it in the middle of the palate, you go, okay, oh, that is blueberry. I taste the blueberry,
Okay.
Which I really like, and I'm really proud of the wine. And at our price point, I feel like if you put out 10 wines, 9 of them being red grape wines, and have ours in that group, you're not going to be disappointed. In fact, you might even prefer it.
Awesome. I'm definitely excited to try some. But I'm also a big fan of the beers. How did that process get started? Why did you decide to make a brewery on site, which is as radically different from wine, both product and legality, as you can?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that was my fault. A little bit of me and a little bit of my father. I mean, we're both beer drinkers and beer lovers, and I got out of the military and I started working with him back in 2011. And we got to know the guys at Cigar City. We were making cider for them. Okay. So we got to know them back in those days. And we said, man, this craft beer thing is really cool. We really love the beers. Jared is a good friend of mine still to this day. He was working here. He makes the cider for them now. Mm-hmm. And he was all into craft beers, knew way more about it than I did actually. And yeah, I just I started homebrewing myself, and then kind of convinced my dad to start making beer, and the rest is history. I ended up leaving this company, started multiple breweries in Buffalo. I went down the road. I went to Siebel Brewing School. I got Cicerone certified, BJCP beer judge certified, and just fell in love with the history and tradition of beer.
And one of the things that I find interesting is that there was some distribution, but you didn't name it Keel, or at the time it would be Keel and Curly. You decided to go the Florida history route with the beer.
Yeah.
So explain kind of where the impetus for that came
Yeah, again,
from.
my fault. The two Henrys Brewing Company, essentially naming it after the two Henrys that essentially developed Florida. Henry Plant and Henry Flagler. Plant City is named after Henry Plant. Not a lot of people know that. Plant High School, obviously. He also started the hotel, Tampa Hotel, the University of Tampa, the hotel.
It's now a museum.
Yeah.
Minarets
and then Flagler, obviously, the other side. So, that telling that history story was cool. From my dad and I are both Plant High School alumni. And then we lived here forever. So we liked that. As time went on, and you alluded to the brand change, there was a little bit of brand confusion. There was a product at the time called Henry's Hard Soda on the market. We were next to them at Total Wine, and it became a little bit of brand confusion. And I talked to that company, and we were able to kind of go, hey, okay, we'll work this out. We'll change. And I wanted to bring all the brands under one roof.
Because you also had the beer and you also had the cider. Because I remember Madman Cider. Yeah. Which it sounds like was an offshoot of what you had originally done for Cigar City.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
How did you get involved? Was it Cigar City that got you involved in making ciders, or was it something completely different and totally your fault again?
No, that one, my father really wanted to try his hand at making the cider. Yeah. After that, after Cigar City, we kind of, we did it. We worked together with them, and we just said, I think I might have been gone at that time, but he decided to start making cider then. But then when I bought the company from him in 2018, one of the things I thought I needed to do was bring all the brands under the Keel name in some way, shape, or form. So we started Keel Farms Agrarian Ales and Ciders. Again, my brilliant idea to use the word agrarian, which means of the land, thinking that I could kind of own that word. But I'm not sure that
I've seen it before. I've seen it used in this way before. Absolutely fantastic.
No, thank you.
Great job. Yeah. But yeah, so you've got the ciders, and I'm very happy that with the ciders, you did not get rid of the elderberry, which is still far and above my favorite.
Yeah.
And then, of course, everything is sort of tied under that one brand. With the ciders, I was always under the impression, going back to the legal aspect, that it's a little bit closer to the wine. Shouldn't it be under the Keel Farms wine sort of IP?
Yeah, it's a good question. And it is. We actually manufacture the cider under our wine license. We got to have 100% But you don't have to have under the same brand name. It's a manufacturer under the same license, which is Florida Berry Wines Incorporated in Florida. That manufactures the wine and the cider. Now, it's treated in distribution like a beer, which is a little weird, right?
It's a little strange.
Yeah. So, because it's not distributed by Republic National, it's distributed by ours is J.J. Taylor.
Yep. Because I was going to say it's actually a great thing to talk about, because one of the things that we sort of wanted to mention is to bring all this together and talk about, you can get the ciders at Publix, you can get the ciders at Total Wine with the beers, which is a little strange. You can get the wines pretty much everywhere. What is it about coming to Plant City, taking the turn off and going by Dinosaur World and coming here? What is it that you hope people learn and experience by coming here that they won't get anywhere else?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think we're all about tying it to the land, tying it to agriculture. I mean, all of our products, that's what we do. We try to infuse those Florida fruits and the history of Florida agriculture into the product. And there's no better way to experience that except to come here, walk the farm, grab a cider, walk the farm, come back, grab a bite to eat. And hopefully during that time, you get it. We get kind of busy, especially in season. But what I hope for is that every customer has a chance to have that 3-foot interaction with one of my team members, and then talk through the history of our company and how the products are made, the history of the area, the history of agriculture in this area. That's difficult to do anywhere else. We do sampling in Publix all around, especially in the Tampa area, but in most parts of the state, where we can kind of get that 3-foot interaction and that conversation going, and festivals and that kind of thing. But yeah, obviously hard to beat coming in here and seeing it, feeling it, smelling it.
Exactly. And you definitely have built an absolutely gorgeous location. You've got a lot of things that happen even off season to bring people in. It's not just coming in, looking at the wines, maybe trying some and then leaving. It's a whole entertainment venue, I guess you would say.
Yeah, no, that's what we kind of want to give is the experience, so you're coming here and you're walking around and you're tasting and you're tasting some food, you're tasting some beverage, hanging out by the pond and relaxing, and you're doing more than just coming to have lunch. That's what we hope.
That's awesome. So I guess if somebody were to come out here, what would be the first thing that you think they should do? What is the best way to start the Keel Farms experience?
Oh man, good question. I think, if you haven't been on the tour, our tours are about an hour long. You get to take a little trolley ride through the farm with a tour guide, and they talk about the history, they talk about the farm, they talk about the manufacturing process, all over different products, where we ferment them, where we bottle them. You can see all of that, and then you can come back and do a tasting and taste everything. That would be awesome. And if you're hungry afterwards, we serve food. But yeah, that tour and tasting, compared to other experiences that are out there, it seems like everything, you take your family to anything, it's $100,
Yeah, especially around here.
Right. So we deliver that experience. You're still going to be in that $25 range. And then if you want to share an appetizer, maybe it's another $10 a person or something. So we want to be that accessible experience. We're close to Tampa. Come on out here, get away from all the box stores and the malls and check it out. Because we got the beach and the water, but when you're done with that, come on over.
Exactly. It's awesome. What are the next steps? Where is the next point for Keel Farms?
Yeah, great question. I'll tell you, there's so much opportunity in Florida. People usually get wide-eyed and don't believe me when I say that wine in Florida is a $15 billion industry. It's crazy. And we are only manufacturing literally a drop in every bottle in the state of Florida. So not just us, but all wineries in Florida. We're making a drop in every bottle. So our goal is, our big audacious goal is to be one bottle. One out of every 100 bottles is Keel and Curly Winery. That's where we want to get. That's what we want to do, what we want to get to. And if we're able to do that, obviously you can do the math. There's a lot of business there.
Exactly.
So, Florida educated, but I think that's like $100 million. So, $150 million. So there's a lot of runway there that, we've been really successful, but there's a lot more opportunity.
Yeah.
I also think we could recreate this location and do it in other places. We're debating where that is, whether that's another place in Florida or maybe it's another large demographic area like Charlotte or Atlanta or something like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
No, thank you. It was awesome.
And there we go with another episode of the Florida Beer Podcast. Hopefully you learned as much as I did, because I had no idea. And it was great to be able to sit down with him and learn a lot more about a burgeoning industry here in the state of Florida. We will be back next week with another location that does more than just beer, which I was not prepared for and was very excited to learn about as well. And if you are like me and you want to know when that next episode comes out, follow us on social media. We're at Florida Beer Blog. Oh boy, on Instagram, we're on Threads, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, and I think we are FL Beer Blog on Facebook. In fact, I know we are FL Beer Blog on Facebook. We're also floridabeerblog.com and floridabeerpodcast.com. Or you can email us at floridabeerblog@gmail.com. That works as well. Definitely make sure to check out the blog, because we have a lot of posting to do. Make sure to check us out on TikTok, because I'm really trying to get a bunch of stuff posted there as well. We're on pretty much every podcasting app you can think of. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. We're on iHeart. You can even ask your smart speaker to just play the latest episode of the Florida Beer Podcast, and that will play my voice coming from wherever your speaker is located. And if you're listening to us on a podcasting app, do us a big favor. Make sure to subscribe so you get the notification of the new episode coming out. That includes YouTube. And you can give us a nice, juicy 5-star review. That'll help us get the word out about the amazing industries here in the Sunshine State. We are proudly part of Flintstone Media. If you have been thinking about getting your podcast off the ground but don't know where to start, or if you are an organization that thinks that you would like to dip your toe into the wonderful world of podcasting to get your message out to your prospective or current customers, Flintstone Media is the place to go. You can check them out at flintstonemedia.com. That is Flintstone, just like the Flintstones, but with no S at the end, media.com. Our intro announcer is Jeff Brozovich. Field producer is Steve Picala. Executive producer for Flintstone Media and Grand High Poobah is Jemmy Legagneur. This is Dave, your host and author. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week. And drink Florida Craft.